HTH is proud to be fueled by BioSteel, produced locally in Windsor, Ontario. Zero sugar hydration, no artificial additives, performance focused, trusted by athletes with eco friendly packaging. Visit biosteel.ca and use our promo code HTH Podcasts, all uppercase, to save 20% on your next order. That's HTH Podcast to save 20% with BioSteel. What's going on, all you beauts and beauties? Welcome to the Hat Trick Hockey Podcast, brought to you by GL Heritage, the official beer of HTH. I am your host, Brett Hedges, alongside the creator of the show, Ant Gaudette, and of course, Hockey Google himself, Tristan McGuire, joined by a phenomenal guest today, a legend in stripes, Kerry Fraser.
Yeah, yeah.
Kerry!
Fraser sucks.
I'm sure you've heard that enough times over the years. We're
Uh,
not going to say it
I
on this
want
pod.
I want to get that in before you guys said it.
Oh, we're not going to say it. Come on now.
So for all of our viewers, Kerry is a legend in the NHL 100
5 seconds in.
regular
Come on now.
season games, which is an NHL record, 261 NHL playoff games, and was an NHL official from 19. His first game was in 1980, but then he refereed until 2010. And of course, the last game is a big part of his book, which is the Final Call: Hockey Stories from a Legend in Stripes. That's available on Amazon. And the foreword was written by the great one himself, Wayne Gretzky. Kerry, first and foremost, thank you very much for being on the show.
Brad, it's a pleasure to join you guys. It was great to meet you all in Windsor at the Play for a Cure charity event, which is near and dear to my heart because we're looking for a cure for the blood cancer that I have, and it's there's a lot of people that I don't think anybody has not been touched in their family in some capacity with cancer. So we want to try and eradicate that disease and raise as much money for research as we can. And you guys were right alongside there helping out. So thank you for that.
And while we were talking at the Play for a Cure, I wanted to say, Kerry, like you were so gracious with your time with so many people that weekend, and you talked about how you always, no matter usually as many charity events that you want to, you get asked to go to every year, you go to, and that's a big, that's very important to you, right?
Well, it truly is. I had just a phenomenal career. I had a dream job. I wanted to be an NHL player. I played at the junior A level and wasn't big enough or good enough to make it to the NHL as a player, but there was other avenues available for all of us, for broadcasting, for scouting, all kinds of different components that make the NHL tick, and officiating is certainly one of them. I think, honestly, guys, I had an aptitude for it, even though I never ever thought about being a referee while I was playing, and just sort of fell into it at the right time. Was scouted by the NHL in 1972 when I finished playing junior A, and the World Hockey was starting, and there was opportunity, and I got plucked right out of a referee school. And 2 days later, I was at the NHL training camp for officials trying to learn the trade.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
in your bio, it says that you were an NHL contracted referee, and in your book, sorry, the NHL, you're a contracted referee for 34 years, and NHL ref for 30. Was there a
Correct.
time where you were working in other leagues before the NHL?
No, I was never. I never worked minor hockey, amateur hockey. After I went to that referee school, and 2 days later, as I mentioned, was invited to the NHL training camp for referees and linesmen. I was put in the American Hockey League, so I started right off in pro hockey. I was signed to a contract the following year as a minor professional referee under contract to the NHL. So I worked in various leagues, as did the other guys in my capacity trying to get to the NHL. We worked the American Hockey League, which was the next level down from the NHL, the International Hockey League, IHL, the Central Pro League at that time. So it all depends which team, which NHL team, where they wanted to have their minor league affiliate. Some of it was close proximity to the various big club. Toronto Maple Leafs, as a matter of fact, during that era, had a team in the Central Hockey League, and they were the Tulsa Oilers. I bounced around learning my trade, and I tell you, it was learning under fire because I really didn't know what I was doing.
Oh, I
Well,
couldn't do it. I couldn't just because no matter no matter what call you make, someone's mad at you. So it doesn't matter what you do. So in a way, for you, there's no win for a ref ever.
Well, that's true, but I always wanted to, I love the game like you guys do. And I always wanted to be the very best that I could be. I wanted to give the game the best opportunity, let the players play. And number one, I think, job for any official is to provide safety for the players to play. And that's what the rules are for. Enforce them, but in a way that allows the players to play the game. I mean, not fill the box up. Sometimes you had to use psychology, get the players to play on my terms without having to put them in the box. I remember a play with Tiger Williams playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Tig was a guy that used to get at least 300 minutes a year in the penalty box, and the game was in Maple Leaf Gardens, and he brought his elbow up on a guy on a shift, and I didn't call the penalty, but I went up to him and I said, "Listen, Tig, I gave you a little bit of a free one there." I said, "You got to keep your elbows down, please." He said, "Okay, thanks, Fraser." Well, the very next shift, I did the head fake. I entrapped him. And he was in the corner with a player, and the puck started to move up the ice a little bit. So I turned my head to move with the play, and then I snapped it back right as Tiger was elbowing the guy in the head. Well, up went my arm. I blew the whistle. I said, "Tig, I told you, man, like next time you do it, you got it." He said, "I know, it's my own fault."
And when you get to that level of, transparency with players, they can't fault, like there's a level of respect that goes back and forth like that. Is that kind of like one of the biggest things that you take away from your career, is that you had a lot of players respect?
Brett, it's crucial. You really hit the nail on the head. I think that my longevity, 4 decades in pro hockey, resulted from the ability to develop relationships. I came in with, as a player, I fought a lot. I hated bullies. I was a little junkyard dog. I was a lefty. My dad was a pro player in the International Hockey League. He was a goon, and he was also a boxer. And he taught me to box when I was 12 years old in our kitchen. He knocked me down more times than I could mention, until I finally realized that I had to keep my hands up and I had to block and counterpunch and move. So I just assumed that role. It was either you had to fight back in those days for respect, or you better look up another sport like tennis. So, but you know what, guys? I carried that forward with me, that little man syndrome, that chip on the shoulder kind of thing. I carried it with me in the start of my officiating career. And I realized that very early that it wasn't going to create success for me. I had to get players to play on my terms, as I mentioned, without having to be a jerk. And like 5 games in, and Danny Gare went to the Buffalo Sabres, had a great career there, scored 60 goals, I think, one year on the checking line. He was playing in this particular game, and the home team was getting beat like big time. They were down like 8 goals, and players were frustrated. Coach was frustrated. Every time there was a goal scored, fans littered the ice, and a player would come from the home team and mouth off at me. I had that, back up, and a bang, I hit him with a misconduct. And I had them sitting 3 deep in the penalty box towards the end of the third period when another goal was scored against the home team. And the coach finally had enough of me. He sent his captain over to me. And very politely, the captain said, "Mr. Referee, my coach wants to know if he can get a penalty for thinking." I said, "Well, if he doesn't think out loud, he's probably going to be okay." He said, "In that case, he thinks you're an effing asshole." So I looked over at the coach, and he had one foot up on the bench, and he was scowling at me and angry. And I started to smile. And I looked and I gave him the thumbs up, like, "Hey, that was really cool." He started to smile, and then we both laughed. And the message to me was really strong. Don't be a freaking a-hole. Enjoy the game. Get some rapport with the players. You don't have to be the little tough guy that had to fight all the time when you play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you find that transition problematic? Like automatically being thrown right into the professional circuit? Like you have no prior experience and boom, all of a sudden you're doing this as, primary income. You've got to do this as your career. Did you take a lot of hate early on?
Well, it's funny because you want to earn the respect, and back then, I'm talking early 70s when I started, and the Broad Street Bullies, the Big Bad Bruins, all of the minor league teams were playing the same way as the big club. Because the guys wanted to get to the big club. So I had Schultz and Selesky and all those guys down in the American League that moved up to be the Broad Street Bullies. The important thing for me was that I had to admit when I was wrong. I felt it was really important. I had to be honest and gain that respect, because you can't BS players, you can't BS fans. So there was one game I had in the Central Pro League, and it was Salt Lake City Golden Eagles. They were the Los Angeles Kings farm team, and Charlie Simmer was playing there. I gave Charlie a misconduct. He told me when we were in the NHL together, and he was on that Triple Crown line with Marcel Dion and Dave Taylor. He said to me, Fraser, you're the only guy that ever gave me a misconduct, and it was in the American League or Central Pro League. But I had just a horrible game that night. Wicked. And I had to stay in the city. I had a day off the next day, and then I had to work the next night. And Jack Tex Evans, former NHL tough guy, big defenseman, he was the coach of the Salt Lake City team. And I stewed about it all that night, the next day. And I'm thinking, oh God, Kerry, you were just horrible. You got to go back into this same place. And they sold out back then. It's a great hockey town now that the NHL is there as well. And before I went to my referee's room, I went to the home team coach's room. I knocked on the door. Mr. Evans answered the door. He looked down at me. He was like 6'3" and big, and I looked up at him. I said, Mr. Evans, I said, I just want to apologize for my performance the other night. I said I was horrible. It bothers me. And I said, I'm going to give you the very best effort that I've got tonight. He's being the pro that he was. He said, listen, kid, we've all had bad nights. Don't worry about it. I know you're going to go out there and do a great job. And I did. I overcame that mental pressure that I put myself under. There was learning steps all the way, guys. Every game, right up to the very last game that I worked in 2010, the most important game of that season for two teams. New York Rangers and the Philadelphia Flyers were tied for the last playoff spot in the Eastern Conference final for the playoffs, first round. And we went into a shootout. So every game, you're going to learn something. I always reflected on, after the game, back in the hotel, at the end of the night, was there something that I could have done better? There's always something. And you never stop learning. And anybody that thinks they know it all, good luck to them, because they're not going to last.
100%.
It says that your first NHL game was October 17th, 1980, in Denver, the Colorado Rockies versus the Minnesota North Stars, two teams that do not exist anymore. But when you look back at that first game, is there something that sticks out in your mind? Were there crazy butterflies in your stomach, or is there anything that sticks out to your mind about that game?
Well, for sure, because there was a new rule that year that anytime there was a fight, typically players would all drop their gloves that were on the ice, and they'd grab a dance partner and they just stand there and hold on to each other. Well, the league thought that didn't look very good for television, so they decided this year, 1980, we're going to give any player that drops his gloves during a fight and pairs up is going to get a misconduct. I had two fights right off the bat. Guys dropped their gloves. They hadn't read the rule book yet, or they weren't told, and I had them again sitting three deep. Glenn Sonmore was the coach of the Minnesota North Stars at the time. Glenn had one eye that he lost playing in the American Hockey League. And so he used to yell at me like all the time, crazy. I'll get to the one eye story in a second. But all the fans were upset with this rookie referee. They all thought I was screwing up the game. They didn't know the new rules. So as we're walking out of the old McNichol Arena, and there was a road up top with a screen fence where the fans could stand, and they would yell at the visiting team and getting into their bus. Well, that night they were just all yelling at me. And I worked with Jimmy Christensen, the linesman, who, God rest his soul, and Sweet Knox. He's departed as well. And Glenn Sharpley was playing for the Minnesota North Stars at the time, and he saw these fans were getting a little unruly with us, and he said to Jim Christensen, he said, "Hey, Chris, if you guys have any trouble," he said, "I'll help you out. I'll back you up." Well, Jimmy Christensen, deadpan, looked at him. He said, "Sharp, I've seen you fight. I think we're better off on our own." So those and there was a lesson for me there too, that the way that the respect that these linesmen had, they'd been in the league for much longer than me, my first game, and the way they interacted with players and could diffuse them or have fun with it, great lesson.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I was a referee for a number. Oh,
one eye.
Yes, please.
Glenn Sonmore. So we go to Hawaii. Ronnie Fournier and I, who I just was a fellow referee, and after he left the NHL, he did the top radio show in French in Montreal, and so Sonmore and Charlie Simmer were there as well. We were all staying at the Marriott, and we decided we're going to go golfing one day. So every time, now Fournier knew that Sonmore hated me, so he made me ride with Sonmore in the golf cart, and he rode with Charlie Simmer. Every time Sonmore teed the ball up, he'd say, "Where'd it go? Where'd it go?" I just found out that he only had one eye. Oh. So as he's looking and hitting a shot, and he said, "Keep an eye on it." I said, "You blind SOB." I said, "You've been yelling at me all that time and you only have one eye." And as he finished his swing, he said, "Yeah, between the two of us, we've got a pair."
Oh. Little zinger for you.
That's awesome.
Did you beat him in golf that day?
Yeah, he was so far on the beach. He was. I had to keep finding his ball, but it wasn't that far. So
that's hilarious.
That's hilarious.
Man, I couldn't imagine though, like not reffing any games and then just going right into the top level, the best players. They're big, they're fast, they're intimidating, right? Like you make a wrong call, they're screaming at you. Who was that one guy who would just like be all over you every time you had him?
Oh, Chris Knuckles Nyland and Theo Fleury. Between the two of them, I don't know which one hated me the most, and they're both written in my book, The Final Call. Brett, I got to tell you that that story, that chapter on the fury of Fleury, is one of the most powerful stories, I think, throughout hockey history from behind the scenes, with Tyson Nash, who was a trash talker and a second-year pro with the St. Louis Blues at the time, and what I learned. I asked for an apology because Theo was signed as a free agent that year with the New York Rangers. He signed a 1-year, $8 million contract left the Flames. And he had been put in the substance abuse program right off the bat. He didn't start the season. And this very first game, it was December, I think about the 18th or 19th that year that he played. It was in Madison Square Garden. And at the end of the first period, there was a scrum in the corner. And Theo, 4 years earlier in a playoff game in Calgary, I ejected him from the game when he challenged me to a fight in the parking lot, cursed at me unmercifully, took his helmet off and threw it at me. And it hit my skate, and I threw him out of the game. Now, fast forward 4 years, and here we are in Madison Square Garden. Theo's first game back that year after being released from the substance abuse program. And in the scrum, apparently, Tyson Nash had trash-talked him about his issues. Everybody had left the ice, and it was Theo and I, face-to-face at the red line, Madison Square Garden, center ice between the two benches. And he said to me with tears in his eyes, he said, "Kerry, I'm trying to clean my life up honest. I haven't done X in 3 months. I haven't had Y in 3 months, drink, drugs, nothing." Yeah. He said, "Don't let him talk to me like that." I said, "Who, what?" He told me. Now, guys, human nature, when you have a guy that curses at you like this guy did and throws his helmet at you and is just a pain in your butt every game I think we ever worked. I was the guy that was the authority figure that he hated. And human nature might say, you know what, it looks good on you, right? You know, you deserve it. How do you like it? But I saw this wounded human being standing in front of me like one of my kids, and I wanted to take his pain away. And I said, Theo, if I can get Tyson back here at the start of the next period and he gives you a sincere apology, will you accept it like a man? He said, yes, I will. And I said, now promise me if I get him here, you don't break a stick over his head. He said, I promise. So I went right into the coach's room, visiting coach's room at Madison Square Garden, past our dressing room. And I said, Joel, this is what your guy said to Theo. Joel is a class act. Windsor boy, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. I love Joel Quenneville. So much respect for the man. And he rolled his eyes and he said, do you want me to tell Tyson to take his gear off? He thought I was going to throw him out of the game. I said, what do you think about an apology? I said, probably good for Theo, and it might not even hurt your guy. He said, great idea. And he ran out of the room and into his player's room to talk to Tyson. I'm standing at the start of the next period at the red line with Theo. Out came the St. Louis Blues from the Zamboni entrance, and it looked like Tyson was going to do a skate by. I flagged him over. I said, Tyson, do you have something to say to this man? Tyson's lip was quivering. He was affected by this. And he looked Theo right in the eye and he said, Theo, I'm sincerely sorry for what I said to you. He said, I went way below the line, and I wish you all the best in what you've got ahead of you. And he tapped him on the shin pad with a stick. I said, Theo, you good with that? He said, I'm good with that. I said, boys, shake hands. Let's play. Yeah. Now, that was in 2000. 10 years later, I've got a contract to write this book when I retire. I just sit down 2 days after my final game, and I'm got things organized. I wasn't even going to talk about this, but Theo released his book, Playing with Fire. He just trashed me big time, guys, in his book. And he brought up that incident in 1996 in Calgary. He quoted exactly what he said, which was vulgar, foul. And I wanted to take a bad situation and make it good, which is what I always tried to do on the ice. And so I called Tyson Nash. I said, hey, Tyson, Kerry here, writing a book, need your permission to share a story. Do you remember the situation with Theo Fleury, December 18-19 of 2000? Guys, the phone went dead quiet. He went, Kerry, that was a life-altering situation. It was career-changing. I said, talk to me. He wrote in his own words, and I put it in the book, exactly what that situation, how it impacted him, and how in his pursuit to be a NHL player, he had to assume this certain role, and it really wasn't who he was. It's powerful, amazing. I'll tell you, parents, because I see, my grandkids play now. Some of the parents are off the wall. Most of them are. They're nuts. They're absolutely nuts. Yeah. And they trash the officials and the coaches that are yelling at these young officials. And it's no wonder that 50% of the officiating is quitting in North America.
Yeah. That's why I don't say a word to refs. I won't say a word to a ref, whether it's my game, my son's game, which I just started coaching like a year or so ago. So, and I just I will not talk to the refs. It doesn't matter if anything after the game, it's a good game. It doesn't matter what happened. Right. Because I know what it's like and what it's doing, the refs and everything. And we're having a hard time finding refs in this area. And you see video after video after video online, parents rolling around in the stands. It's like, hey, you guys know you're at a U9 hockey game, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you guys, you're going to probably laugh, but I have just signed up as a referee with USA Hockey. I've been granted level 3 status. And I just did a game with a 15-year-old kid, young man, who is playing, but he's also. I asked him in the pregame, kind of get to know him. Why are you doing the refereeing? Well, he said it gives me extra ice time, and I can make some money to pay for hockey. Hockey's getting expensive. Mm-hmm. I said, great. So we had this game, 2 games, as a matter of fact, and he did a terrific job. the very first thing we did, I said, we're going to go introduce ourselves to the coaches. We're going to shake their hand. I said, you're going to be the lead referee, and I'm going to be the newbie. I'm the rookie in this crew here. And so we introduced, if you can imagine, you know, but I have a helmet on and a visor, got the hair covered. And I shake the guy's hand and I said, how do you do, coach? My name's Kerry, and this is Lucas. And Lucas is in charge today. I'm just kind of the rookie here. And so we do the game. And I mean, I said to the coaches, you might appreciate this. I said, listen, if you guys have a question, if anything during the game we need to communicate, just respectfully get our attention. And one of us, who's ever closest, will give you an answer. We may not agree, you may not agree, but at least you're going to get an answer. And I said, if you do it respectfully, that's great. I said, you can call me, hey, ref. You can say, Kerry. I said, just don't call me asshole, because my feelings really get hurt easily. So this one guy at the end of the game, the second game we did, which was U12s, the coach came on and he, you know, the other team wanted pictures with me. And the coach walked over, he said, what's your last name? I said, Fraser. He said, I knew it, Kerry Fraser. I just introduced myself to Kerry. He didn't know who the hell I was.
That's hilarious.
That's terrific. I did want to make one comment though. I love that one of the main principles you hold in your game as a referee is the accountability, not just for your actions on the ice, but what you say and how you carry yourself. And no pun intended, I guess. But when it comes to the situation of with Theo, I love that you hold everybody accountable to what they say and do, and that you realize that anyone can learn at any age valuable lessons, you know, and try and understand that people are just people, and they're, you know, they're a collection of the way they're raised or whatever interactions they've had up to that point. But you can be, like you were to that young man, a life-altering person in just the way you conduct yourself. You set that example, and you know, you act it out, and you show them the way they should be and how to conduct themselves as a true professional. And I wanted to make note of that and say that's very admirable.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I must tell you that we all have that capability to make a difference. You know, whenever I do keynote speaking and talk to various professions, a lot of things are interchangeable between what I do, what I did. I learned along the way. I learned about life. I had some terrific life lessons that I had to learn. But I had to learn about myself first. The things that were inside me that would cause me to flare up. You know, we all acquire certain components over time. You know, from the crib all the way to the casket almost. And those you know, those lessons that we learn, if you really pay attention, everybody likes to think about the good things they do, their skills. They never practice the things that they need most practice on. And I learned very, very quickly. There were things, once I figured myself out, the things that made me tick, and in the pit of my stomach when I was being challenged, it just rose up and it rose up, and then finally it'd get to here, and blip, out it'd come. I had to relax. I had to control that. I had to push it down. I had to have a calm demeanor about me. You know, with the this is my personal copy of the book, The Final Call, and I know this is not going to work too good, but in the Theo Fleury chapter, I did a thing with the Hockey Hall of Fame, and Theo was there that year, and we traveled together from the hall out to Calgary to pick up some guys, Brian Trottier and Billy Smith and Glenn Anderson, and we were heading off to do a charity event through Canada for the Special Olympics. And Theo and I bonded on that plane. We got to share from each side the things that bugged us about each other, and we had a wonderful meeting of the minds. And with Theo, I have all the guys that sign, wherever I've written about them, they sign in my book. And Theo said, uh, "Thanks for sharing. The hatchet is buried." So we buried the hatchet, and it's wonderful. The Some of the great stuff. I mean, like Prime Minister Stephen Harper wrote in the back page. Bobby Orr, uh, just Bernie Parent, legends of the game, and as a referee, I'm a fan. I mean, I grew up watching the Leafs, every night, Saturday night hockey night in Canada with my family, and it just becomes part of you. The game is so important, and nobody's bigger than the game. And if you have the opportunity at any level, whether you're coaching your son, you have an opportunity to impact the players of that game, no matter how old they are, and especially the youngsters that you're going to be a role model for them, and you can either be a good one or you can impart some really bad stuff that they're going to carry through their young adult life. Hopefully not just the good stuff.
Yeah. So you said something about the Toronto there. So I have a lot of like Leaf fans in my life.
Here we go.
I'm not a Leaf guy, okay? Personally, I'm not a Leafs guy, but I had a lot of them ask me about 1993, the what was it? To the Wayne Gretzky high stick.
Right.
And you had said like just straight up like you didn't see it, right?
No, missed it. It
Wow.
happened so fast. And I replayed it over and over and over,
Yeah.
and still hadn't seen a replay. When and of course the setting, guys, think about this.
Yeah.
This is game 6, Western Conference Final. Leafs are up 3-2 in the series. If they win, they go to Montreal to play the Montreal Canadiens in an all-Canadian final. There's some immensity of the outcome of this particular game for Canada, for sure. And I had given Glenn Anderson a boarding penalty. He tried to run Rob Blake through the end boards. It was an obvious penalty. It was an overtime. And so Toronto's on the kill. And end zone face-off, Gretzky almost shot the puck right off the puck drop, and it hit Jamie McCowan in the shin pad, the defenseman for the Leafs, and bounced right back to where Doug Gilmour and Gretz were standing from the face-off. And as the players moved, and I was looking, I got blocked, I didn't see it, and there was a quick motion with Gretzky, and if I had to guess, I would have thought that he shot the puck again, because it was right there. Yeah. And play stopped, Doug's dabbing his chin, I stopped the play. And I went over to him. I said, "Doug, what happened?" He said, "Well, Wayne shot the puck and his follow through hit me in the chin with a stick." I said, "Well, if that's the case, that's not a penalty." He said, "Okay." He was okay with it because he didn't really know. And he's the guy that got hit with a stick. Yeah. But there was something that smelled bad about it. And because Gretz was always the guy that would be there pleading his case. He's the captain. But he kind of shuffled off to the sidewall. And he was kind of looking like the cat that swallowed the canary. So I called the linesman over and I pleaded for help. Ron Finn out at the blue line, he had balls of an elephant. If he had seen it, he would have told me. He said, "Kerry, I was looking through their back. I couldn't tell." Kevin Collins, the other linesman, had dropped the puck, and he was not sure. He was, I don't know, maybe. If they were bent over, I'm not sure. So there was no way that I could impose a major in a game misconduct at that point, which was the rule then, on Gretzky for a high stick that nobody could confirm. I had to eat the call. Found out next day, replay, 5-6 replays. It took Hockey Night in Canada to find the right angle, and it was Wayne reaching through and clipped him in the chin. As bad luck would have it for me and for the Leafs, Gretzky scored on the very next series of play just before Glenn Anderson's penalty expired.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, one of those things that it's the human element. Now there's so much replay. I mean, this kind of bothers me because I had to know the difference between a 2-minute penalty and a 5-minute penalty or a match penalty, different degrees of the foul. What happens today is they automatically call a major penalty so it can be reviewed in Toronto, and then they decide whether it's a 5 or a 2.
Right.
So replay is something that I endorsed. I was happy to have it because I thought it would prove us right at least 99% of the time. Mm-hmm. And the times that we weren't right, especially on the scoring of goals, it had to be right for the game. So that's where the replay should come in.
Mm-hmm. Kerry, obviously that was a big call in your career, but you went on to referee in the Stanley Cup final, LA versus Montreal, and you are part of another a very famous call as well, where Marty McSorley gets a stick measurement during a game, and then Montreal gets a penalty. Can you kind of set that up, and how did that come to be, and how did you as a referee handle that situation?
So we went off to the finals that year after Toronto was eliminated in Game 7. Gretzky scored a hat trick, said he had the best game of his career that night. When Wayne tells you he's had the best game of his career, you can believe it. He had a lot of them, and I saw a lot of them. So we're off in Montreal. They had the first 2 home games in the series, and LA won Game 1. Now they're up by 1 goal with 1 minute and about 36 seconds left in the regulation time. Stoppage of play. And Jacques Demers was coaching the Montreal Canadiens. He sent Guy Carbonneau and Kirk Muller, captain, assistant captain, over to me with Marty standing on the ice ready for the shift. And he said, Jacques wants you to measure Marty's stick. I said, which part? They said, the curve. I said, okay. Now, if the stick is illegal, Marty's going to get the LA Kings are going to get a penalty. But if the stick was legal, then the Montreal Canadiens would have got a penalty. They had it pretty calculated. I think they kind of knew that this stick wasn't really legal. I went over to Marty and I said, Marty, I need your stick, please. I have to measure it. The blood drained from his face. I looked at the curve of that stick, guys. I went, Marty, what are you thinking? Like, that is so obvious. I got to go measure it. So I measured it meticulously. Gretz is standing right at the corner of the referee's crease. Ray Scampanello, the linesman, held the stick while I measured it twice, making sure. And there's a gauge that sticks on the end of the slide. And if it doesn't touch in the rotation of this stick gauge, if it doesn't touch anywhere, you know that it's in excess of that 1/4-inch curve. Well, it was blatantly obvious, and it was illegal. I showed Wayne, which I didn't have to do, but I said, have a look at this. I took the stick and didn't touch anywhere. And they got a penalty. Now, Jacques Demers made a really crucial call here as the coach. He pulled Patrick Roy for an extra attacker. So now they have a 2-man advantage, empty net, minute and change left, and they're down by a goal. And Jacques told me afterwards, when I was writing the book, he said, Kerry, if we had gone to LA down 2, I knew we were done. We would have lost, had no chance. They were going to win the cup. And sure enough, it was Eric Desjardins. Thank you. Rico, he scores his second goal of the game to tie the game, and then gets the third hattie in OT, first defenseman to score a hat trick in Stanley Cup final. And boom, it's over. They go back to LA, and LA never wins another game.
Wow. Incredible.
Wayne Gretzky told me that was the most difficult loss that he ever suffered.
That's crazy.
Wow. So would you say then that was your most pivotal call that you've ever made that has had an impact on a game?
No, I don't think so. I think, if the one that I missed is the one that I would love to have had back.
Of course.
You guys over 2,000 hockey games and the Olympics and World Cup. And I mean, there's just so many decisions that you make as a referee. And now we're coming into the Stanley Cup final. And I remember, like, I did 12 Stanley Cup finals, but I remember each one of them for a different reason. And my very first Stanley Cup final was 1985. I'd only done the playoffs. That was my third year doing Stanley Cup playoffs. And now I'm in the Stanley Cup finals. And we didn't have two referees back then. We had one. And so I was the youngest ref at the time to ever do the Stanley Cup final or be selected for it. And it was the Oilers and the Philadelphia Flyers. I was game 2, which was a 1-goal game. And then I was pressed into game 4, which was just a phenomenal hockey game. I had the Flyers down 2 men, and there was one of the Sutter twins, I think it was Ronnie Sutter, intercepted a D-to-D pass. He's going in on a breakaway. He gets hauled down. I call a penalty shot. I went to Grant Fuhr before the penalty shot, and Grant, you're going to love this. He was so calm. Like, some guys, you'd look in that mask and you'd see some scary guys. Like, goalies could be nuts, right? Grant was just calm. So I said to him, hey, listen, when you're ready, let me know. I'll blow the whistle, and don't leave the crease until he touches the puck, please. He shrugged his shoulders. He said, okay, just send him. And he stoned him.
Yeah.
He stopped the puck, and it was just, those kind of moments where you have that interaction with the player and you really get to see what they're all about. This guy in the Stanley Cup final with a penalty shot in a 1-goal game was just calm as could be, cool as a cucumber.
That's wild.
Amazing.
That's wild.
Can you kind of shed the light about how NHL referees get chosen to be in the final? Because I know obviously there's a little bit of politicking and things that go on in anything.
Sure.
But how did you get the call? Do you remember your first call saying, "Hey, Kerry, you're going up to the finals"?
I had an amazing year that year. I was like the new guy on the block. The media, it just all sort of came together, and like my wife Kathy always said to me, you really had an aptitude for it. She called me the Wayne Gretzky of refereeing. That's not me, guys, honest. But I just had the aptitude for it, and everything really fell into place where I learned those things about myself that we talked about. I communicated with coaches and players. They just sort of fell into the way I wanted them to play without, too much controversy. And when the playoffs hit, in the Battle of Quebec, it was Quebec Nordique and the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, those games were war. I don't think there's a bigger rivalry in any sport between two cities as those two. And the year before was the Mother's Day Massacre, when they fought at the end of a period, and then they fought before the officials came back out. It was wicked, and that was game 7. So now I do game 2, and then all of a sudden I'm selected as this rookie guy to go in and do game 7 of the Battle of Quebec. I went in the day before. As soon as I landed at the airport, Doral in Montreal, the guy that handed my bags, "Oh, Mr. Fraser, we're so good. Who's going to win the game tomorrow?" Then I get in the cab line. "Oh, Mr. Fraser, so good to see you. We're happy to have you. Who's going to win?" I shut myself into my room. I ordered room service. I woke up the next morning itching like crazy. I looked, I had red blotches all over me. I broke out in hives. And I didn't want the other guys to know about it. So we went for lunch, and I went into a pharmacy, and I showed the pharmacist. And I said, "I don't know what I got." He said, "Did you have food allergy?" I said, "No." He said, "Are you nervous?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, that's what it is." So he gave me something, and I said, "It can't be drowsy. I got to be awake." So it was non-drowsy stuff. So I laid down for my afternoon nap. I told Scampanello and John D'Amico, the other linesmen, that I would see them at the rink. I had to go get some equipment adjusted. I went early so I could get into my long underwear so they wouldn't see my blotches because they were still there. The game went fantastic. It was an overtime game. Peter Stastny scored the winning goal in OT after a face-off win and a shot from Pat Price at the blue line. And Stastny got the rebound and knocked it in, and boom, it was a clean goal. And now we go into the dressing room, and we were happy with our performance. And I took my gear off, and my skin was white as snow. It was gone. All the blotches were gone.
Wow.
So I knew I was on a roll, and the next series, I had another couple of games that went very well, and but I will tell you, gentlemen, and I won't belabor the point, but there was some professional jealousy that I had to endure during that final, and even some other situations. It's very competitive. The officials, to your question, are rated. There is politics involved for sure, to a certain degree. But sometimes it's luck of the draw too. I mean, if you just kind of roll through the playoffs and avoid controversy, and some of it is, the seniority helps, the experience. But I kind of turned that rule around where the young guy, I mean, I did 1 year in the playoffs, first round. The next year I did 2 rounds in the playoffs, and now I'm doing the Stanley Cup final. So it happened very quickly. I was elevated very fast.
It must have been very validating for all the work that you'd put in, getting those kind of calls and being able to go to the Stanley Cup final. Before we talk about your eventual diagnosis and your last season, which is all in the book, which is of course is the final call. Hockey Stories from a Legend in Stripes, which is available on Amazon. Darren McCarty is a good friend of our show, and I would kick myself if I didn't ask you if you had a favorite interaction with Darren McCarty or even the Detroit Red Wings of the 90s during your career.
I got to tell you, Darren McCarty, I had tremendous respect for. I always tried to get the tough guy on a team to sort of play on my side, because a guy like McCarty, Joey Kosher, guys like that, they were so respected by their teammates because they carried the pail. They stood up for their teammates. When the going got rough, these guys got tough. So Darren was a guy that I had such a really good relationship with. I knew what he had to do. Mm-hmm. If he had to do it, go do it. And he knew what I had to do, which was, when you're done, just go sit there for 5 minutes or more and do your job. He's a terrific guy. The rivalry between the Colorado Rockies, or Colorado Avalanche, and the Detroit Red Wings is something historic. Claude Lemieux's hit on Draper was wicked. It was nasty. It fueled everything. And even with Scotty Bowman being the legendary coach that he is, Scotty used to do things that would drive Mark Crawford absolutely insane. And I had two games that this brings it to light. Playoff game. The trainers all left after the morning skate. They went and had their lunch. They'd done the laundry, and everything's all set up for the guys to come in that night. Well, it turns out that the back of the visiting team dressing room door was painted with the most toxic smelling paint you could ever imagine. You walk in there and it just give you a headache. Well, Scotty was asked about it. Why would the paint be applied to the visiting team in the afternoon day of a Stanley Cup game? Scotty just shrugged his shoulders, says, I don't know. They must have scheduled maintenance. Now, he also shortened the bench. The visitors' bench, he cut down so that the guys were all cramped up like this. They couldn't spread out. So Crow was just screaming at Scotty around the glass, the partition between the two benches. And Scotty was just standing there, doing his thing like this. And I went over to Mark Crawford, like the veins are bulging in his neck, his face red. I said, Mark, calm down. I said, he's got you right where he wants you. And he took a breath and he calmed down. What I found out was that Scotty had said to him, Mark, I knew your father before you did, and he wouldn't be very proud of you.
Oh,
so,
Wow.
so Crawford went bananas.
oh,
What a day.
Little games. It's a little games, right?
Yep.
The games within the game.
Yeah.
I always say.
I've read through the book on Scotty as well, and he was quite a tale of two different characters, eh? What was your strangest interaction with him? Have you had any run-ins where you were like uncharacteristic potentially, or
No, Scotty. There was a game in the Joe Louis, and I had called 4 penalties in a row on the Detroit Red Wings in the first period, and I just called the 4th one, and I'm standing with my back to the bench, and I heard Scotty yell, "Kerry, that's 4 penalties in a row." I just turned my head and I said, "Great math, Scotty. One more, you got 5." And he just shook his head like, it's not, we're not accountants. The common philosophy from media especially is that, well, they called one that way, pretty soon you're going to get one the other way. They're going to even it up. 4 in a row, I mean, I don't recall whether he got the 5th one or not, but if they did something, they were going to get it. And that's where you establish yourself too. I think players back then, when we were one referee, each guy had his own sort of personality. In Detroit, Dino, Sarnia boy, I'm a Sarnia boy. And he was bouncing around like a pinball in the corner, up and down, diving, trying to draw a penalty. And he went up and down like 6 times in one shift in the corner, and never made it out of the corner. I just looked at him and shook my head like, it's not going to happen tonight, Dino.
That's funny.
Kerry, you refereed until you were 58 years old, which I believe you said was ancient for the time being. And that final season, it was preempted by your cancer diagnosis. Can you please shed some light on that and how that ended up, culminating in your final season in the NHL in 2010?
Well, actually, it was after I retired that it was diagnosed, Brett. But there was a lead up to it, because every year we go to training camp and we prepare for training camp. We have a very stringent fitness test. It's all documented from year to year. We do speed times on the ice, the whole deal. Ride the bike. They drop the big weight on it, and you pedal till you're done. VO2 max, and so with the blood work that I was being done for the last couple of years, I would get the report from Dave Smith. His brother Barry was the coach with Scotty in Pittsburgh and with the Red Wings when they won the Cups. And it would say, keep an eye on your platelet count. They're trending high. So I'd retired, written the book. I went to Toronto in 2017, the summer of 2017, to do a charity event for cancer, of all things. And it was at Woodbine Racetrack, and they built cages, metal cages for ball hockey in the parking lot of Woodbine. It was the biggest ball hockey tournament ever. And so I was drafted, and the coach said, do you want to play or do you want to referee? Or do you want to play or do you want to coach? I said, Coach, are you nuts? I'm going to play. So I was battling this guy. It was 98 degrees. I'm battling the guy for the ball, shoulder to shoulder. I bop it off the cage, win the battle. I'm running down the floor, the tarmac, 98 degrees, heat coming off the black mat top. And I throw a pass over guy one time that scores a goal. And all of a sudden, everything started to spin. Like I'm almost feeling like I'm going to pass out. I thought I was just dehydrated. So I watered up, took it easy, go home, got a blood test, and my GP said, Kerry, you got to get into a hematologist. We got a real problem here. Turns out, went to the cancer clinic, and after tests and such, the hematologist said, with my wife Kathy sitting there, "Oh, well, we know what you have, Kerry. It's a blood cancer in the leukemia family. We don't have a cure for it, but I think we can manage it." And my wife fell apart. And so I said to him, as you would as an athlete, okay, so you're the captain of my team. Let's tell me what we need to do, because I plan on dying with this and not because of it. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm on 9 chemo pills a week since 2017. There are some side effects, but I ride the bike and I do all kinds of charity things and skate and keep active. And we raise money for various finding a cure. I did 3 mountain climbs 2 years ago. We raised $100,000 with, and we were all cancer patients. We were at 13,500 feet in Denver, 13 and a half miles on a hike. And then we went to Alberta and the Alberta-Montana border. And we did 3 10-mile hikes in 3 successive days, raising money. And it was amazing. I mean, having the ability to be with people that share the same disease as you, and to support one another, to, somebody get a little fatigued, you'd prop them up. It was really a team concept, and it was amazing. So I continue to do those sorts of things. There's actually a group right now that is working on finding a cure for the MPNs. They're out of New York. Let's see if I can find it for you. So I plan on getting a hold of them and being a guinea pig if they need me. But it is patientcore.org.
Patientcore.org.
Yeah, patientcore.org. And their website is, I signed on to it, and man, is it ever look promising. So I'm going to do anything I can to help them if they need it, and try and find a cure. What's interesting is people die with this stuff that I had, and they don't even know they have it, because there's a mutant gene in my bone marrow, or bone marrow for people that have this, and they just keep building platelets, and you don't know it. And then all of a sudden they clot and they go to your heart and you die, or they go to your brain and you die. And it happens to women a lot. So women over 50. So it must have hit my sensitive side at 58 or 9.
Kerry, I apologize for getting the timing wrong with the diagnosis in your final season. During that final season, your last game is at the Wachovia Center, Philadelphia versus New York Rangers. It's a big game, like you said. 8th place is on the line. There's a section in your book where you talk about the day before, where you have the crew over for a barbecue and your family's there and everything. And then the next morning you go to church and you go to mass, and then you go to the Wachovia Center. It's a 3 p.m. start. And at 11:34, you got a text from the great one, Wayne Gretzky himself. What was that like, getting that kind of validation from the greatest player of all time? And what does that mean to you still today?
Well, the whole day was surreal. I packed my bag, and I still can feel the emotion of it, sitting at the back door. And we'd had all the family there the night before. They slept over. We had a big house. And it was almost like I was saying goodbye to each one of the kids that had been to Stanley Cup finals. Each one of them got to go. They were a very integral part of my career. My wife, Kathy, went to the Olympics in Nagano. She's been to pretty much every Stanley Cup final I worked, and the World Cup in Europe. And so I saw sadness in all of their eyes as I walked past them, gave them a hug, and I'm off to work for the last day. Going to mass, it was the feast of divine mercy, and I'll never forget it. It was so peaceful. I felt such peace at mass, and then as you mentioned, driving into the Wachovia arena and having my phone go off, and I looked, and it's Gretz, and he said, "You made such a great difference to the game. Congratulations on an awesome career." Uh, then I parked my car in the players' parking area, and I walked through the back door, dragging my bag, and there's Mark Messier from the Rangers. And Mess came; he was waiting for me to walk in, gave me a hug, and we had a moment together as well. Last year at Easter, we go to West Palm Beach every year, take the kids and now the grandkids. And I got an opportunity to play with a friend of mine at Michael Jordan's golf course, The Grove. And it was a Monday morning and 10 o'clock. And I just put my shoes on in the men's locker room. I walk around the corner, boom, bump right into Wayne Gretzky. So he's, "Hey, Kerry, how are you?" So we had a moment. And he said, "Hey, listen, I got Janet with me. She's out in the coffee area. Let's go up and get a picture with her." I said, "Sure." So I walked out. Janet's sitting there, and 10 in the morning. And I said, "Hey, Janet, how you doing?" "Hey, Kerry, how are you?" I said, "Come on, get up here. Let's get a picture." She said, "Oh, Kerry, I look horrible." I said, "Janet, there's no way you'd ever look horrible. Get up here. Let's get a picture." So we, the three of us, have a picture together. And, it's amazing how no matter where I go, I bump into former players. This last year, the kid that caddied for me uh, gave me some kind of indication that his dad was maybe like an athlete. And I said, "Was your dad a pro athlete?" He said, "Yeah, he was in the era of Gretzky and Lemieux." And I said, "What's your last name?" He said, "Quinn." I said, "Are you Danny Quinn's kid?" He said, "Yeah." So I team up with Dan Quinn. We got a couple of beers together, and Ulfie Samuelson came in and joined us. And I mean, the hockey fraternity, guys, is amazing. It's amazing. Messier is a dear friend. We do a lot of charity work together. He's just an awesome guy.
Wow. So some people may not know, Kerry, you're the director of a nonprofit that's called the Steak Club, and you guys support a bunch of different charities annually, at least three. And every year you guys are giving out close to $1 million. Talk to us about that phase of your life and how you got involved, and how rewarding is that work for you?
Well, my son-in-law has a golf travel company that he started. It's actually it's called All Access GTE, which stands for Golf Travel and Events. All Access Golf Travel Events, and so he is the official provider for the NHL Players Association. He was a basketball player. He married our daughter, who was a Division I basketball player, got her master's at St. John's as the assistant coach there. And so Ryan had me to the Masters. He does all this special stuff. And we started this private golf organization by invitation only in 2018. And you had to belong to a good private golf club. There was zero profiteering. It's all about nonprofit, making money to help others. And we have a rule that I was the referee of the club. We have a no asshole rule. So I told Jeremy, I nominated 26 former Stanley Cup winners and some guys that didn't win the cup. And Roenick is one of them. And he's a great player. I mean, really a good golfer, but he's very intense. And our very first event was down in Streamsong in Florida. And he was complaining because he missed a putt and he said it was his caddy's fault. So I went over to him and I said, "Listen, I said, I've thrown your ass out of hockey games. And if you're being an arsehole, I'm going to throw you out of this club." Well, he picked me up in a bear hug. My little feet are dangling off the ground like this. And he gave me a kiss in the cheek. He said, "Phrase, I love you."
That's yeah. So you actually play lots of golf, don't you?
I do.
So
I love it.
You're a Sarnia boy, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So are you ever back this way at all?
We come back at least once a year. I can't make the annual tournament that we do. Our goaltender, when we won the All-Ontario, Brian Cousineau, went on and played in St. Catharines, Blackhawks, and he passed from diabetes. And we had a really great hockey group there. Our midget team was 5 guys went on and played in the NHL. my line mate Wayne Merrick won 4 Stanley Cups with the New York Islanders. Bob Neely was on our defense, the number 1 pick for the Leafs, Big Bob, and some really great players. But I can't make it this year because I've got another charity event down in Jersey. But we raised money, and because Kuzi was a goalie, it's the Kuzi Golf Tournament, and Mike Hoban is the coordinator of it. Hobie went on and played in the World Hockey, and they had supply equipment and coaching for goalies in the Sarnia area. Yeah. 30 goalies that couldn't afford goalie equipment were outfitted last year. They had 90 kids that they did goalie school for. So it's really giving back to the community. And that's really what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, we had such an opportunity, and now it's time to give some back.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. The hockey community is an incredible one. Well, it's the Stanley Cup Finals starting very shortly, and we would be silly not to ask you, what are your thoughts about this rematch between Edmonton and Florida, and what are your thoughts going into it? Do these referees have a lot on their plates for this series, or what?
Well, there's a couple of things that I'm going to share with you. First of all, I'm pretty good at handicapping before the playoffs over the years as to who was going to win. And last year, I said that the 3-4 weeks before the playoffs started, I said Florida's going to win the Stanley Cup. This year, I said the only team I think that can beat the Panthers is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And they took them to 7, and Game 7s are just not in the cards for the Leafs at this point. I love Craig Berube. I think he makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And some of their stars have sort of matured a little bit, shall we say, but it just wasn't to be. I think picking up with Florida, getting Brad Marchand was an amazing add to that already great group. Here's the thing. Goaltending can be the big difference. Bobrovsky is awesome. If he has a bad outing, which he did last year in the finals, he bounces back. He's never a two bad in a row goalie performance. And Edmonton goaltending prior to the last series or so has been suspect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's been playing great. So now we got a balance of the goaltending issues. You've got Connor McDavid, best player in the game as far as I'm concerned. Is amazing. And he's got some great support cast there. They're playing as a unit. So I still think now here's the real nut. Depending on how the games are officiated, if Florida is allowed to play their physical, nasty kind of game, I think that Florida is going to win the cup. However, if they call the penalties when these guys commit it, the power play for Edmonton is going to roll over them. So there's the fly in the ointment, and I hate to put the pressure on the officials, but if they let them play, that'll let them play, which sometimes means let them cheat. It's going to be a tough uphill battle for the Oil.
Well, I would think that, that's a tough position for these referees to be in, because on one side, you want to protect the stars that Edmonton has, but you also don't want to limit the kind of way that Florida plays. Like, that's got to be really difficult for a referee to kind of decide and be consistent with throughout an entire game. Would you agree?
I think it's really important to call the penalties when they happen. The biggest deterrent for a player not to commit an infraction when I refereed was the fear that I was going to call the penalty. If they believed that I would call the penalty, and that comes with over time developing that rapport and that reputation and the communication. And if I went to somebody and said, "I'm going to tell you something, I've had it, that's enough. I'm gonna start laying the hammer down." Okay, phrase. I would go to both coaches. You know when they used to do the scrums and they'd snow the goalies and that
Yeah.
sort of stuff, and it got stupid. So rather than like right off the bat, maybe it happened twice. I would then go to the coaches, both benches, and I'd say, listen, I've had enough. It's not going to happen anymore. I might, but I'm not going to call even up. It's not going to be one guy from your team, one guy from theirs. I'm going to pick one. It might be yours, might be theirs. So do me a favor. Tell your boys when the whistle blows, you stop playing. Because if you don't, you're running the risk of getting one. And every time I ever had to say that, the coach would say, boys, you heard him. Stop it.
Yeah.
Put it back on the coaches. Let the coaches control them.
Yeah.
I mean, and the other thing I never wanted to do was say, if you do that one more time, you're going to get one. Bad karma there. You don't want to, because if you don't follow through, you're done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Kerry, we've kept you for over an hour. Tristan, Ant, do you guys have any other questions for the legend in stripes, Kerry Fraser?
No, I think I'd just like to give, I guess, my closing remark. Wow,
Yeah.
what a pleasure this has been. I love not only how charismatic you are, but also what you bring to the table and your wealth of knowledge and experience, the most experienced referee in the game. Thank you for everything you've done for the game, as well as your research towards cancer and your awareness that you have raised. That is something that I think gets easily glossed over when people look at your resume, but I think that's, to me, a highlight that stands out. And it's represented in all facets of the person you are, and especially your character and the way you want to imprint that on other people. So, way to go. And you've left an impact on me as well in the pursuit of that goal of being someone who can be a role model for others.
I'm tremendously honored with your comments. Thank you so much for that.
That's a tough act to follow right there.
Wow.
Kerry, seriously, thank you so much, man. This has been fantastic. If you're ever back this way and it's warm outside, let us know. We'll play some golf. We're always down to play golf. And just good luck with everything. And hopefully we can actually like see each other and shake hands and everything real soon.
Well, if I'm invited back for the Play for a Cure, I'm going to say yes. That was one of the most fantastic events that I've ever been part of. So well run, and the community all got behind it. Windsor community, great hockey town, and it was just tremendous to be part of it. Adam Graves, one of the best guys I've ever came across in the NHL. He's such a kind individual, really special man, and was a great player. But his heart is bigger than the amount of goals and assists that he ever got. There's one other event that I do with Gravy, and that's in Long Island, and it's a 24-hour hockey marathon, game every hour, annually, and we raised $7.5 million in 24 hours last year in this event.
Wow.
So those are the kinds of things where the guys give back. Colton Orr was there. I love Colton. Again, a tough guy with a big heart, and the hockey community is so special, and it's amazing to be part of it. When I was diagnosed with cancer, the first call I received when it was announced on NHL Network was from Mark Messier, and Mess said, "Kerry, never stop fighting, never stop fighting." Coming from the Mess, I had to agree. And then the very next call I got was from Bobby Orr. Just amazing individuals. And for me to be part of it, I feel so blessed. Mm-hmm. And to be part of your show is another blessing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A little behind the scenes. Ant and Tristan were supposed to be on the call for that Play for a Cure game, but then Ant had to go snap his tibia and fibula.
Like at hockey too.
Yeah. So maybe next year we'll all be there as a trio.
I got to ask a question. Did you finish the game?
The game was over after that. I had
played.
to leave in a freaking ambulance because my foot was like sideways and I couldn't get up or anything. So I was like, sorry, boys, have a beer on me though. So,
well, mine wasn't quite as bad because in 1982, Paul Coffey hit me with a slap shot 5 minutes into the game in Edmonton and Northlands Coliseum. It knocked the end off my fibula. I knew it was broken. but I kept the skate on and finished the game. And then when I took my skate off, you can imagine it blew up. Yeah. But my at least mine wasn't waggling around like yours was.
Yeah, mine was like, it was just like a floppy noodle. It wasn't good.
I can't wait to see you guys again in Windsor.
Absolutely. I'll leave you with this. Adam Graves has his number in the rafters at Madison Square Garden, and that is your background. It's fitting that two beauties like you guys are both in Madison Square Garden. And you spoke about, before we got on, about how important being able to officiate at Madison Square Garden was for you. And obviously very fitting that it's your background for this show. So thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this show, Kerry. You are an absolute beauty, NHL record of games refereed, and I couldn't think of a better person to have on the show to talk about the Stanley Cup Finals, considering you did 12 of them. So thank you very much for your time and your expertise, and thanks for having the trust in us to have you on this show.
Brett, it was my pleasure, my honor to be with you guys. And since you talked about Madison Square Garden, pause. You might be able to splice this in. Pause. So you're looking behind my back at Madison Square Garden, where I did my milestone games, the 1,000th game and my 1,500, which was the first time that a referee ever did 1,500 games, and they created a new milestone. So I was able to pick the teams that played and the venue. I wanted 2 original 6 teams, Toronto Maple Leafs both times, against the New York Rangers in Madison Square Garden. Well, for the 1,000th game, Pat Quinn was coaching the Toronto Maple Leafs. Quinner never really got to like referees very much. And they rolled out the red carpet, and all the my family was out there. I'm sorry, this was the 1,500th, I think, that Quinner was part of. And so the people were standing and applauding and clapping. I got a standing ovation, and Ray Scampanello was standing over by the bench where Pat Quinn was leaning, and Quinner just had his arms folded. So Scampy said to him, "Hey, Pat," he said, "it's Fraser's 1,000th game. Everybody stand and applauding. Clap, clap." Pat Quinn went, 999 too many.
That's hilarious.
So that was my 1,000th milestone game.
That's incredible. What better way to end the show? Kerry, you're an absolute beauty. Of course, that book, one more time, is The Final Call, Hockey Stories from a Legend in Stripes. It's available on Amazon, and the foreword's written by the great one himself, Wayne Gretzky. The Stake Club Foundation is the non-for-profit organization that Kerry is the director of. And, Ant and I have been talking for years. We want to try and get ourselves a charity golf tournament going sometime, and you would be number one on our list of guests that we would love to have.
Yeah.
So we'll get some work done on our side, and then we'll reach out to you about possibly doing that.
Look forward to it.
Absolutely. From all of us here at the Hat Trick Hockey Podcast, thanks for tuning in. Thank you very much to Kerry Fraser, for Brett, and Ant. That's Tristan. We'll see you next time on Hat Trick Hockey. Good night.
I've lost my fight with time. My numbers up and up the line. I gaze at the darkness, so empty, just looking for the light. Shout for help, but no one's there. Need a guiding hand, someone who cares.